All right, let's jump over and talk a little bit of hoops. Something we haven't talked about in a little bit,
Yep.
or at least I haven't. West Virginia has a visitor out of the transfer portal visiting. You know, it's been kind of quiet, not a lot of activity
Yeah.
around the basketball team, but you know, I think they have 13 so far that they've signed, and they probably want at least 2 more, I would imagine. Um, and it's a name that West Virginia fans will probably recognize, but it's Arturo Dean, who played at Oklahoma State last year, and he is reportedly visiting West Virginia, or was visiting there, I guess, today. Jonathan, maybe you have
Yep.
more details on
Yep.
that,
On campus today,
which is Wednesday.
which is Wednesday.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about Arturo Dean?
Fits the mold, Couz, of what Ross Hodge is looking for. Hey, we've discussed this before. You
Mhm.
know, the reality of it is, and I've been very adamant that I truly like how this roster has been constructed. In fact, we played a little bit of game a few weeks back about is it going to be a Sweet 16 team,
Yeah.
maybe I took the leap of faith and you stood back and watched me fall. I don't know how it's going to work out. But I said yes because I liked how this roster had been formed. But they were missing a couple pieces, right? And we felt like the backup point guard was one, and
Mm-hmm.
we feel like um, maybe another depth piece at the center position was another.
Yep.
Um, and so, yeah, Arturo Dean, 5'11", 170 pounds from Oklahoma State, averaged almost 8 points a game, 3 rebounds, and about 3 assists. Because here's what really stuck out to me about him. Um, he really fits the mold to me of what Ross Hodge is looking to do. One thing that was pretty impressive to me is at 22 and 23 season, 2.5 steals a game.
Yep.
That went up to 3.5 steals 2 seasons ago. Last year, that dipped back down to 2.5 steals a game, but in almost 5 minutes less per game. And so he defends well, still can score the basketball, rebounds, assists. He does a little bit of everything. And again, something else, and we've talked about, and actually, you did a really good breakdown about this the last time we spoke about it. Some veteran players and some guys that have been able to
Mm-hmm.
get in tough spots, play a lot of minutes, that are familiar and maybe have won in their past, right?
Yep.
So it should be noted too that Ross Hodge got a pretty up close look
Yep.
at him. Was it last year? Actually, I guess it was in
Yeah.
March.
Yeah. It was the
Um,
NIT.
NIT, and had 12 points, 7 boards, and 3 steals in that game in, I think, 29, 30 minutes. So,
Yep.
and actually played against West Virginia and Morgantown last year. So, kind of familiar with his game.
Yeah, absolutely. He has started 74 games in his career at between his 2 years at FIU, Florida International, and his 1 year at Oklahoma State. He started 74 games, has played in 97 games, averaging 27 and a half minutes a game. So he came in as a freshman at FIU and was playing a ton of minutes as a
Yeah.
freshman, and averaged double figures both of his years at FIU. So this guy is a ball player, man, and he defensively, I mean, 3 steals a game, Jonathan. That's huge, man. That's a big number.
It's a big number, and it'd be interesting to see if he does end up committing to West Virginia, signing with West Virginia.
Mhm.
Kind of how he fits the mold. I think what you're likely to see, Jasper Floyd, who followed Ross Hodge over from North Texas, extremely familiar at the point guard spot with how things will be ran
Mhm.
in the system. So does Dean fill that backup role? Does it allow Honor Huff to make sure he stays at the 2 guard position? I think Dean has the ability, even though at 5'11", can play both spots.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not somebody that's just going to come in and give you about 7 or 8 minutes a game and back up. This is somebody that's played 20 to 30 plus minutes a game.
Right.
And so, and that's competitive Big 12 basketball, Couz. So,
Yeah.
somebody that's not going to be afraid, but it's somebody you can trust on the floor. When you look at ways to round out this roster, it's a pretty darn good one to help round out the roster.
It kind of reminds me, last year I think it was it Joseph Yesufu that they
Yeah.
added late in the process last year.
Yeah.
A guy who had Power 4 experience coming over, to come over with Darren DeVries, and this would be a similar, a guy who can play the point, which I know Yesufu was mostly a 2 guard, but could play the point if needed. I see Arturo as more of a pure point guard, honestly, but like you said, he could play either position. But depth at the point guard spot is critical.
Yeah.
And bringing him over, I think he could push Jasper Floyd potentially for that starting spot. And even if he don't, you've got a very valuable player that you can rely on to play solid minutes in case of an injury or foul trouble or whatever. And that's how you build winning teams, is by building depth and quality depth. And I think this would be, if they can get him, if they can knock him down, would be a huge piece to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is somebody that you can feel extremely comfortable with putting him on the floor. Again, anywhere from almost 30 minutes to 25 minutes a game, 30 plus games played. It also tells you he's pretty durable.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
you can play 31, 34 games in the Big 12, pretty much night in and night out. You can bear the workload. And so, when you look at Jasper Floyd, you look at Arturo Dean, you look at Honor Huff, and kind of how they want to mold that backcourt together. Again, hasn't committed yet. My understanding is they've worked pretty hard to get him on campus. He's finally here. Generally speaking, if it's just ironing out some details, some NIL type stuff, but would absolutely be a huge, huge commitment.
Yep. Do want to we don't have a whole lot more to talk about, but I do want to mention, we do need to mention a couple other things, Jonathan, about the baseball team. They ended up finishing the season ranked 13th in one poll, I think it was. And I think it was 15th in another, the two I saw. So top 15 ranking in 2 polls, at least 2 polls. So congrats to them. And then Steve Sabins, the coach, named AB, the American Baseball Coaches Association, East, I guess I said that right, American Baseball Coaches Association, East Region Coach of the Year. So hats off to Steve Sabins, year 1, earning that honor. Future is definitely bright. The baseball team has added several quality transfers. I don't. We can get into that, Jonathan, if you want to, but I mean, you again, he's written about all these guys over at the website. But
yeah, they've been really, really impressive. I just would quickly say, they had a lot of success last year out of the D2 ranks, bringing those players up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going back to the well. Several of these have been their conference players of the year, D2 All-American pitchers. So they have been extremely active. In fact, late last night they added a D3 catcher who is extremely talented behind the plate, especially as a hitter. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But just icing on the cake of an incredible baseball season. And again, not to do a shameless plug, but if you'll go over to the site, there's articles on every single one of those, the rankings of the season, and then Saban's getting Coach of the Year. So some pretty good analysis of those players over at the site.
And the one player specifically, speaking of ABCA, Ian Korn, the D2 pitcher, was named American Baseball Coaches Association Rawlings Division II National Pitcher of the Year.
Yeah.
So, and there's a guy by the name of Derek Clark that had a pretty good one season at West Virginia a couple years ago. He was from the D2 ranks as well, if I recall.
Yeah.
They've done a great job grabbing those D2 guys, and Ian Korn. And by the way, he spells his name Korn, which just so happens to be how one of my favorite rock bands spells their name. So if he
Yeah.
doesn't, if his walkout song is not Corn, I'd be very disappointed.
he, you would, but he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then the other one I probably would highlight too, Couz, is Dawson Montesa,
Yep.
D2 Adelphia University, was an All American there last year. We've talked a lot of stats in football on this show tonight. How about this one? Last season, I think it was 1.99 ERA, 72 innings, only struck out 105 batters. that's
Wow.
that's in the baseball world what we call getting it done.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
8-1 last year in 12 games. He's going to have 2 years, so 2 seasons of eligibility left. And so um, I made a comment the other day. One of the struggles that not just West Virginia but a lot of college baseball teams struggle with is pitching. Games run deep, pitchers run deep. Um, and credit to Steve Sabins. We don't know how this is going to turn out, but credit to Steve Sabins. Has made this a point of emphasis this offseason in
mhm.
recruiting, and it's almost every day where we're hearing an All American is coming in, or a Player of the Year is coming in. So he's going out and getting some talent for sure.
Absolutely. Uh, Jonathan, you and I had kind of talked about this. Oh, by the way, before I move on to the next thing, pitching. I think we could say pitching would be very important to this team, considering that was
Yeah,
kind of their down. I don't want to say downfall. That sounds super negative, but it kind of hurt them there in the super regionals there because the bats were getting it done. It was the pitching that really hurt them, and so adding more pieces to that bullpen and to that pitching roster is going to be a good thing.